Get into geek. We're back talking Marvel TV. I won't even say what episode it is because it's been so long since we did our last one. Okay, fine, I'll admit it. We nearly finished Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Since then, we've had, I think, 3 other Marvel series. And here we are talking the finale and all-round review of Hawkeye, the 6-episode series. My name is Mitch. Joining me, as always, from Marvel TV. Hi, Mitch Matty. What's doing?
Captain Marvel in the house.
Captain Marvel and Captain Chronology unite to talk about Hawkeye. We're a little over a day after the season finale, potentially series finale, but probably not. Who knows what's going on with these Marvel series? And we've been talking about it offline a little bit, and we just wanted to get behind the mic because we said we would do that after last week's Spider-Man No Way Home reviews, which are out there. If you haven't listened to them yet, go and check them out. But I dare say it's not going to be quite as a flattering review as we gave Spider-Man last week, as we might do for the finale, or even Hawkeye overall. But for someone who was there right at the start with me, and I know there's a few other people that we've been talking to offline, both part of the Geek team and not, that jumped on this puppy late. What are your thoughts, I guess, on the finale, Matty, and what are your thoughts on the overall series, and do the two sort of line up?
I think the best way to describe it is like peaks and valleys. Like I feel like for the finale had some really, really good moments, but then it also had some real like, huh? What? Kind of moments.
Yeah.
Like, really? Is this what we're doing? So it's a real mixed bag. I think the closest I can relate Hawkeye to would be Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Like in terms of like, the Disney Plus shows and stuff like that. It's not WandaVision level. Might be sacrilegious. I really didn't enjoy Loki that much, except for like that last scene. So yeah, I feel like it was very much on the level of Falcon and Winter Soldier, where there was like really, really sick moments where you're just like, oh my god, that is so awesome, and then other moments where you're like, really? Are we really doing this? And then I feel like they had the same budget of like costume budget. It's like the designs are really, really good. I just feel like they're executed really, really cheaply.
Yeah.
Like I think once we see like Sam's Captain America in a movie where they've got a little bit more budget and they fix the little, ticks that it had, it'll look awesome. And then the same with like Clint's costume reveal at the end. It's like, yeah, cool. It's the iconic, purple arrow. We get it, but it looked really cheap. It's like, oh, it was made by LARPers, so that totally makes sense because that's what it looks like.
Yeah. And here we were, I guess, from the Avengers. It's like, well, of course, he's never going to wear the purple with the big H, on his face or on his head or whatever. And it's kind of like, well, this is as close as we're going to get. And so I guess, yeah, it did kind of fit with me, the look of it. But it is hard to judge it when you are seeing it on a television screen for the first time, and it's like, yeah, is that going to change the movie? Probably, and that's half the reason why people online, at least, were like, oh, that's why we didn't see, a certain character in Spider-Man, if you haven't seen the film. Spoilers for Spider-Man No Way Home for the next 15 seconds, okay? Skip ahead. That's why they said we didn't see Daredevil, only Matt Murdock, is because that costume, if it is the same one from the Netflix universe, then that might not translate well to the to the big screen so much. All right, spoilers over for that character.
And I wonder if that costume belongs to Netflix.
Yeah,
I wonder if they can even use it. So
yeah, maybe. Yeah, I don't know.
Because I guess what we should get to is this Kingpin. Is he the same Kingpin?
Well, what?
Is that our Netflix Kingpin? I feel like in the Netflix version, it was very much, yeah, he's just a big guy. He's just a big guy. He's got like Kevlar suits, which I thought was a really, really cool thing. Whereas I feel like in the battles for this one, they've really amped him up. Like, for just being a big fat bald dude, he ripped a car door off its hinges. And
I read a tweet this morning, and I'm just trying to find it now, and I actually thought that I had sent it on to you. Well, here you go, actually, from Vincent D'Onofrio himself, the great man. he has quoted an article that was obviously quoting him from Screen Rant, where it says, Hawkeye and Devil's Kingpin are the same, confirms Vincent D'Onofrio. Now, look, we were trying to hide it, but you know what, if you're listening to Hawkeye, if you watched Hawkeye and you're listening to Hawkeye, good chance you have seen Spider-Man No Way Home, okay? So I guess almost at this point on, we're probably going to have to talk about Spider-Man No Way Home spoilers, even to the bare minimum. But we said in our spoilers chat that particular scene with Matt Murdock, that very easily could follow Season 3 of Daredevil. Because not much was known, not much was said about Daredevil or Matt Murdock, that it could very much follow on what happened. They didn't reference the last 10 years of his life, so that very much fits. But this Fisk, the last time we saw Fisk, or at least D'Onofrio as Wilson Fisk in Daredevil, in Season 3 at the end, he was heading back to jail.
After having absolute shit having beaten out of him by Matt Murdock. Just gallons of blood just down the front of his white suit that all came from his face. It was face blood, just down his body.
Maybe that's what toughened him up for this one. So
I was going to say, cut to this one, he's getting hit by cars, being thrown through brick walls, and just standing up and keeping on fighting. I think I'd said to you in that chat last week, but maybe offline at some stage, that I finally was okay as of about 2 weeks ago that this isn't we're not going to get a continuation of those characters. And I've just realised, as many more smart people out there would have, is that, well, by making them new and just having them as the same actors playing those same characters, well, they're just a variant, and we've been introduced to variants or alternate universes and different realities and blah, 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 multiverse shit, that means that the storyline and the character arcs and all that sort of stuff, and the acting and those particular takes on the characters from Daredevil on Netflix are not going to be tainted. There's nothing they can do in Hawkeye or Spider-Man or ongoing MCU stuff that is going to derail anything they did on Netflix. And that's probably the best thing. And also for the MCU, you don't have to bring these guys in and go, we'd love to do the Born Again storyline like in a different way or a proper way or something compared to what Netflix's interpretation of it was, but we can't do that because, well, they've already done it. Same, I guess, as if they brought in even the Bryan Singer X-Men universe, those James Marsden and the like, Famke Janssen and all that. Well, we'd love to do Dark Phoenix, but, they've already done it, so we can't bring those same characters. Yeah, well, they've done it twice, so we can't do that with those same actors playing those same variations of those characters. So it was a good thing to me that they weren't going to be, and I thought, well, definitely Wilson Fisk isn't. If you only see Spider-Man, you go, maybe, but if you see Hawkeye, at least up until, well, even the episode, I was like, okay, cool. It's definitively not going to be, but I also saw another. It was actually still on Screen Rant. So they've obviously got the touch on the Fisk stuff. They made a note that a very subtle detail, despite or rather adding to what Vincent D'Onofrio said, that there's a subtle detail that suggests they are the same. Now, you could, before I say what it is, I'll preface it with, okay, it doesn't really mean anything, and the actor or the costume designer might have just made that certain choice, but they looked at the cufflinks, and I don't remember the cufflinks, but it must have been a big deal in Season 1 when you learn a bit more about Fisk's history and his dad being this violent, domestic abuser, and that he wore his father's cufflinks as a reminder of who his dad really was, and I guess what he didn't want to be, and the type of thing that he's trying to get away from, and all that. Cufflinks are a big thing in the Netflix show.
Yeah, which I'd forgotten about. I honestly haven't watched any of them, or at least certainly the Daredevil stuff, in like 3 years since they aired, so I'd forgotten about that, but apparently those are the cufflinks that I think even, Kate Bishop at one stage picked them up and used them to some extent. I don't know. Some stage we do see them.
She flicked? That might have been what she flicked.
She flicked that to set off. Yeah, that was his cufflink.
I didn't flag that as a cufflink. I just thought it was a little bit of debris or a coin or something like that was lying around.
I picked it up as a cufflink, but in no way, shape, or form would I have attributed it to be the same thing as Netflix. And to do so, I would have had to remember that was a thing. But apparently, they are the exact same cufflinks. Okay, cool. Yeah, he brings into question, well, what's happened the last 5 years? Did he not blip and everyone else did, and he somehow got out of jail, got freed because they did some legal jargon? Did he escape? Whatever. Maybe that's why we don't know anything about his past. But
it's like, did he serve his time? Like, we never find out what his sentence was. Like, what was he actually sent to prison for? Was it the murder of
Yeah, I guess so. It would have been, maybe
like
tied to those.
He just did so much seedy shit. Like, you just don't know what they actually pinned him on.
Yeah.
And did he have a really good lawyer that got him out? So maybe he because wasn't it the end of the first season he got sent to jail, and you saw him like in jail for a while, and then he got out. So maybe he served his sentence. Like, he got it, down to, the minimum amount, and he served it, and he's back out again.
Yeah.
Until I get a scene where, like, Charlie Cox says to Vincent D'Onofrio, our deal's still in, or, references something, then for me, I'm going to not go 100%. That could be D'Onofrio talking out of school, saying, well, of course, I played both characters. They're the same guy. I'm playing them the same way. I'm like, well, yeah. So, until there's something on screen that tells me that, I think I'll hold off a little bit. What I would love, because I love the fact that this D'Onofrio, he had the cane with the big, diamond in the top. I'm like, that's iconic. I'd almost love it's like he needs a cane because he got injured from like that last fight with Matt Murdock. If that fucked up his knee and he needed a cane to walk on, I think that would be just the perfect little bow to just touch on that. So maybe when we see them, he could have some kind of reference to being like, oh, I need this cane because of you now, or something like that would be fine.
Yeah.
But then it also introduces a weird concept of it's like, well, Kate's mum hit him pretty hard out of nowhere with a car.
So hard. I actually thought
can
that
Charlie
was...
Cox do more damage than a car?
Yeah.
I mean, that'd be awesome if he can, but
Absolutely.
he's still just a guy.
I thought that when he got hit, I thought, oh, that's them taking him out of action for the rest of the episode, and they're almost going to suggest that he's dead because of that. And really, Kate Bishop doesn't know who he is. Like, she's heard of him through Hawkeye, like, oh, he's this big crime lord, but he doesn't mean anything to the show at this point, really. And that's what made me a little bit more disappointed. And I feel bad about talking about Hawkeye, and we're talking about a Hawkeye season finale, but we're focusing on the potential Daredevil connection. But it was the opening that seconds of the show, right? Almost the first thing we see in this episode are his boots and his cane walking in to meet Eleanor Bishop. So... And that scene
well
alone...
done on the name recall.
Yeah, oh, God, I was really scratching.
I'd just be like Kate's mum.
Yeah. I watched it with Link, hardly enough. Like, he was in town, and I'm like, oh, bro, just stick around. We're going to watch Hawkeye just in case this thing happens. And, he's never watched Daredevil, so he doesn't know to look out for this sort of shit. I'm like, we've always said to him, watch it. And then after the hint last episode that Kingpin was coming, and I'm like, mate, you don't even know, like, it'll be different, but then you can go back and watch him in Daredevil and see why we love him so much. And that scene, more than anything else, or rather, that scene and not anything else in the rest of the episode, was Daredevil Kingpin. Like, what he was more intimidating, what was more intimidating about him was what he didn't do, and just the looks and the things that he didn't say. Like, when he walked in and said, hello, Eleanor, and she looked up at him and asked him a question or something, he just sort of looked at her, and he had this like little twitch in the left of his face, and then just sort of like exited screen. And Lincoln behind me like actually gasped, and I'm like, yeah, man. And I had this big smile on my face. I'm like, you just wait. And even the whole time she's like, I'm going to get out of the game. I'm going to do this, blah, blah, blah. I don't want any part of you. He's like, Eleanor, think of what you're saying to me now. And he was so calm, and I loved that. And even pulling in, is it Kazi or whatever the bloke's name is that works for Maya? And he's like, what are we going to do about her? What are you even going to do about Maya? That she doesn't believe us anymore. And he's like, what are we going to do to fix this? And he's talking about killing someone so calmly, and that seemed to me like a Netflix Daredevil Kingpin. But then later in the game where he got so much more involved, like physically, and I'm watching that fight between him and Kate, I'm thinking, okay, he never got this physical with Kate, not in a comic book way, superhuman type of way. Like, when he's fighting Charlie Cox's Daredevil, it was brute force, brutality, sort of like, it was a proper brawl, and felt tangible. It felt real.
Yeah, well, given that Daredevil, so much of his background is his dad being a boxer, it was a brawler. It was a brawler fight. Whereas obviously MCU like to do a lot more stylized fights. So it felt very almost like a superpowered fight. Like, I was totally okay with the way Kate was getting thrown around. It was maybe a little too far, but you would think, okay, a man of that size and a girl of that size, he could, like, he could throw her a distance, she's, but it felt a little more superpowered, like the height that she was getting when he would throw her and stuff like that, which I get, but it was just like ripping that car door off, and then the Hawaiian shirt and the hat, I was like, ooh, any of that menacing quality that he had through 3 seasons of Daredevil and that first scene of the episode was completely gone with that hat. And I know it's like, I had to look it up afterwards. I'm like, okay, it's a nod to the comics, the Hawaiian shirt and stuff. The hat, I think, is inexcusable.
Yeah.
But I get it. But yeah, it's like the best part of Fisk is, and they lay so much groundwork in the Daredevil show. It's like he's just a big, like, insecure kid. He has this rage that sits just below the surface from being bullied as a kid, which, hello, can relate. But his like, as you said, like, his measured, quiet moments, D'Onofrio just kills because you can see that rage just under the surface. Like, he could snap at any second. So yeah, and obviously, you know, there are a couple of moments in the show where you see him snap, which is great. But yeah, this was just a very different sort of style of fight. So I was like, it'll take some getting used to. Yeah. And then he obviously at the end gets shot directly in the face and is still going to survive somehow.
Yeah, he's a Halloween or he's a slasher film bad guy. But you know, it's classic, you know, trope in film and TV. They pan away, you hear a gunshot. So all they have to do when, I guess, in the what's her name, Echo series, is that they will reveal that, and he will have grabbed her hand, forced it up, she fires it, and maybe the muzzle flash will then go to more comic book accurate stuff where he temporarily goes blind, and it'll just be the Flash that's temporarily made him that way, and she's deaf, he's blind, but he's still alive, and will probably still, you know, feel for her and want to care for her in his own sick, dark, twisted way.
It could even throw into, like, Echo's, like, her iconic look, which I thought we were going to get in this show at the end, but we didn't. Like, we got her with the hair down, which is obviously a different look for her. So I thought, okay, at some point there's going to be a fight and she's going to get, I don't know how it's going to be white, but I thought, okay, maybe they'll do it in blood, but she'll get, like, the handprint or the 3-finger sort of thing on her face. And I was like, well, surely we're going to get that. And we didn't. So maybe
which we did in episode 3, like when her dad died, when she found her dad, she did get the blood on there, and but I was looking for the same thing. I'm like, I wonder whether she's almost taken that on as her symbol sort of thing, and when she come out with the long hair, I'm like looking at her face and if there's any kind of white mark, and there wasn't. I thought, this might be, it's almost like the Hawkeye thing, right? It's he's going to maybe kind of wear a shade of purple at some stage, and you're like, okay, well, that's the nod, because they're never going to put him in purple tights and a mask. And what's Maya going to do? Like, every other day, she's going to turn around and put a, like, white handprint on it. It's like, no, we're going to show why that's a symbol, almost, with her dad's blood and her origin, and then she just won't have that kind of ever again. So it would have been a tough one to have. But, yeah, I think for me, the Kingpin stuff, it should have ended at the end of that first scene where he says, is it Kazi? I keep mixing up his name. But
Kazi sounds right.
Yeah, and he says, you know, basically about killing Eleanor and what are we going to do about Maya? And then it kind of cracked in. That was almost the cold open. That should have been it for me. That's it. Because the show almost didn't deserve the character, because it had never built up to that. There wasn't, like, from the very first episode, it's like, oh, there's some deep dark force behind all this. Like, after episode 1, nothing was really going on. There'd been an explosion, you know, happen, you know, at the auction or whatever. But then those guys broke in. So, okay, you got the tracksuit mafia or whatever, and then, okay, well, they're working for Maya, but Maya's after the Ronan suit because she wants Ronan, blah, blah, blah. Like, that was sort of the bad guy element. Okay, well, then Eleanor's going to be the overall bad guy kind of thing. No, but we find out at the end of last week, oh, well, she's working for Kingpin. It's like, cool, but he doesn't need to be in the same way I almost compared it to Lincoln on the phone last night. It's a bit like at the end of the first Guardians of the Galaxy, and the whole movie they've been talking about getting after Ronan, the accuser, and Drax wants to kill Ronan. Ronan, with his bare hands, killed my wife and my children. I want to kill him myself. He is the be-all, end-all of my existence, is to kill that person. Ronan dies, and then at the end they're like, oh, well, I guess that's the end of that. He goes, no, I'm after Thanos. He was Ronan's boss, and so he's the guy I really need to kill. And I'm like, no, Thanos is the guy that the franchise needs to be the big bad. Right up until now, you've never really heard of this bloke, but all of a sudden you're really angry at him. And in this, no one knew anything about Kingpin until, like, you know, okay, Hawkeye's there saying to Kate last week, oh, he's the guy that I was hoping wasn't going to get involved because he's out there. But he's probably got his hands in that many pies, especially if he's the old Kingpin that we know. Because right so far, if that was his actual office at the start, I'm like, I get that you're trying to stay low, but that's a really dodgy office for someone of your power. And then when he stands up and
I
goes...
thought they were in like a restaurant or something. I thought they were in like some weird Hawaiian restaurant.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe I was too focused on D'Onofrio's face than to look at anything else around because I was just so obsessed to see him back as this character. And I'm like, how did no one spot him during the pandemic times with a bald head and a clean-shaven face and go, obviously he's going to be Kingpin again? Like, I'm fascinated they managed to keep that a secret as long as they did, outside of just being a rumor. But for me, that's almost where it should have ended. And then I know, obviously, it was leading to Hawkeye fighting Yelena on the ice after they'd taken down the Foot Clan of Tracksuit Mafia, and then Kate's battle, even though it hadn't really been leading there until it had been leading there, but she didn't know about it until the end of last episode, could have been with her mum. Now, I'm not suggesting they fight, but Hawkeye was already fighting Yelena, Kate and her mum. That could have just been a talk, an argument, or something, unless they all of a sudden reveal her mum to be.
I think the fight should have been with Swordsman. It should have been with the mum's boyfriend. I don't think he should have been a patsy.
Yeah,
he should have been in it. Maybe they were like Eleanor and him were both working for Fisk, but didn't know it.
A bit Scream villain-esque. It's like get one arrested to make it look innocent, and then free them, and it's like, oh no, they were still. And we'll get to Jack in a minute because my God, that made me laugh. But that would have been. Yeah, they also been fun.
And Fisk's main character, like his main character trait is he's the puppet master.
Yeah.
He's the evil Monopoly man, puppet master, staying away from all the stuff that's going to get him in trouble. And that's why he has all these minions to do stuff.
Yeah.
So the fact that he got his hands dirty with Eleanor felt a little bit out of character from what we're used to and what we know about Kingpin. So, I mean, even in this show, it's like when Hawkeye's talking about, Echo's boss, it's like, they even sort of laid down, like they went extra hard on it, saying he doesn't get involved. He likes his anonymity. Yeah. He can't work if people know that he's a dodgy bastard. So
yeah.
It felt. I mean, it was cool to see. It was cool to see, but it's what's that old adage? It's like eating a piece of candy. It's like it's great in the moment, but afterwards you just feel a little like you still feel hungry. You're like, that didn't actually satisfy me the way I needed it to.
And the Puppet Master thing works so well in Daredevil Season 1. I'm trying to remember how much we heard about even a figure that was pulling strings of the crime in the city. I think they touched on it a little bit, but more so with his underling talking to all those other people about the real estate potential of what they were going to do in Episode 1. Maybe something in Episode 2, but then you get, and spoilers for Episode 3 of Season 1 of Daredevil from 2015, but you get to that guy at the end that Daredevil's wailing on, and that guy kills himself rather than, and in the most horrific way, rather than even say Fisk's name. He's that afraid of this guy. And then we finally properly meet Fisk in Episode 4 of a 13-episode run where, again, all he does is talk, and then he finally kills someone, again, in a really brutal way at the end of that episode, but otherwise doesn't really, get involved in anything physical. There's no direct confrontation until, as far as my memory serves, that last episode where Daredevil pulls him out of the limo when he's trying to escape shit, and they have that alleyway fight, and it's like, it's built up to this. Like, he finally has to get in the fight, and I felt like this is earned because it's been there since the start, and they've made the little thing into the medium thing, which then gave birth to the big thing at the end, whereas this, after Episode 1, you go, is there a big bad? You're like, no, not really. This is about these two characters interacting. Is there, after 2, it's like, well, we've just met this Echo chick, and, if we don't know anything about Kingpin, that uncle moment, the touching of the face in Episode 3 means nothing. Even Episode 4, nothing. And then it's Episode 5, it's like, I hope that there's this guy that's out there, and it's like, okay, who? And then at the end, we see that it's Kingpin. So, had he have been there from the start, I think that fight with Kate is potentially earned because he finally gets involved. But to introduce him at the start of all this and then have him there right at the end in like several different ways, like he's there on the street, he's there in whatever shop it was getting his ass kicked and kicking Kate's ass, and then he's there at the end to help set up Echo's series, and it's just like, I felt like it was too much. Sometimes too much of a good thing is not a good thing. And
That's it.
And then
from an emotional point of view, sorry, you go.
No, go.
I was going to say, and from an emotional point of view, it's the complete antithesis of the Yelena Clint fight that had all the emotions for two characters who had just met. They've literally never met either. This is the first time they've met, but through their joint connection with Nat, it was the most emotional fight we've seen in a long time. A long time.
And what I loved about that working for me was because I know, the internet's loving it and Twitter's going off going, we want a Yelena and Kate Bishop show. Just let them have a discussion, a road trip for 10 episodes and have them talk. They're everything they do is brilliant. I'm like, is it though? Like, some
is
of
the both of them, or is it just Yelena? Because if you go and watch Black Widow, there is a road trip scene where it's Scarlet and Yelena sitting in a car for 10 minutes, and who's the winner in that scene? Yelena, because she's talking about a vest with pockets.
Yeah,
like she steals every scene she's in. It doesn't matter who she's with. Florence Pugh steals every scene as Yelena, so it doesn't need to be with Kate. It can be with any character. She steals it.
They get that the ladies' night, the girls' night scene from episode 5, and there was a lot of just sort of funny for the sake of being funny moments, but then it was a little bit more heartfelt, even though it was still kind of funny. And then at the end, where she gets up, she's okay, I'm going to go kill Clint now, and it's like, oh shit! All of a sudden, you are the Black Widow movie version of Yelena because you've flipped the switch, and this whole nice thing, in part, has been because you're trying to get information or trying to get her to trust you or whatever. And even though Kate's like, well, she's not letting herself fall into that trap of, what would stop this? A conversation, which is what's so irritating about a lot of movies and TV where two people are angry at each other or one person wants to kill someone else, is if you guys just spoke for a minute, you'd realize this was a misunderstanding. But because of, big screen action, we need to see you punch on for a little while. Yeah. And there was...
Well, and also I think they're trying to keep Yelena as a good guy. If she was just a mercenary and would kill anyone, we'd be like, she can't be an Avenger. Yeah. Even though, obviously, they hint at Nat's past as a widow before she, switched sides. But I just feel like the only person Yelena wants to kill is Hawkeye. That was set up in the end credit sequence of Black Widow with Valentina. Yeah. So it's like, we get that she wants to kill Clint, which is that was the little disconnect for me, is I want to know more information about how we got to where we are, in terms of, it was set up at the end of Black Widow. Valentina's like, hey, how would you like to kill the guy that killed your sister? So is that directly tying into this? Because it feels like it was much earlier. Because how long has it been since the snap? It's been a while since, or the blip. It's been a while since that. Now, hasn't it? 6 months or something like that.
Yeah, maybe 6 or 8 months. I think I've really got to sit down and try and nut out the details of where these shows fit. Because I think when Falcon and Winter Soldier came out, I feel like maybe that's an 8-month mark since the blip.
So what I need to know is seeing Yelena at Widow's gravesite when Valentina approaches her. What time frame is that compared to when we see her for the first time in, what is that, episode 4 of Hawkeye? Yeah. Because it's like, okay, did Eleanor hire Yelena directly, or did Eleanor hire her via Valentina, and Valentina was the one that approached her about the job? Or, because to me it felt weird. It's like, well, Yelena already wants to kill Hawkeye. We've known that since Black Widow. Why did Eleanor have to hire her? And they doubled down on it a few times. Why did Eleanor have to hire her to do it? I feel like Yelena would just do it because she wants to avenge her sister's death, because she thinks Clint's responsible for it. So that was a weird little disconnect for me, where I'm like, and this whole series of Hawkeye takes place over a week. It's the week leading up to Christmas, basically. It seems to me like within an hour or two of Eleanor making the phone call, Yelena's there and fighting Clint on the rooftop. And it's like, well, from when we saw her in Black Widow talking to Valentina, has she been looking for Clint? He's not hiding. He's just he's living at his same little safe house and stuff like that. So it's like, has she been looking for him? Is this her first lead on tracking him down? I just have a lot of questions about that, because I felt a little bit disconnected with that.
Yeah, well, going
but the actual scenes, once they're in them, flawless, absolutely flawless.
Fun, yeah. Going into the show, I would have just, because there was, obviously, if you see Hawkeye at the end of Black Widow, and then Hawkeye's got a TV series coming up, it's like, well, I guess this is where this goes next, is Yelena's going to be in the TV series. But that's all it was rumor. There was never like a poster with her. The trailer didn't feature or anything. And for good reason. She wasn't in it until the very end of episode 4 of a 6-episode run. But heading into the series, I'm like, okay, well, that scene takes place before Hawkeye, and then whenever she comes into the show, that'll just be at the end of her trying to catch up with him. But then we get the information that, oh, well, she hired me, and it's like, okay. They never mention Valentina. There's no mention of, even when she goes, why did you hire her to kill him? There's no, okay, Eleanor doesn't need to go, well, hang on, no, first I called someone who put me in touch with Valentina, and then she said she's got someone. Because at the end of Black Widow, it's almost, from us seeing her in Falcon and Winter Soldier, she goes and hire out wannabe Captain America, gives him a new suit, and says, I've got a different purpose for you. And it's almost like, she's putting her own team together of her little, Dark Avengers sort of thing.
Yeah,
and
she's the evil Nick Fury.
Yeah, she'll go and probably put Zemo on the team or something, or all these other little people around that she's gonna put together.
No doubt she'll find Red Hulk, because Red Hulk has to be coming in. Was it She-Hulk or the other stuff that's coming? So it's like, he'll be part of that team as well. Like it'll be like Red Hulk. It's happening. Like we're gonna get or something.
And that's why I thought that. Well, that's what she's doing it for, is almost like, hey, go and kill this guy that killed your sister, and then you'll know that you can trust me because I've pointed you in that direction, and then you'll be a potentially kind of bad Black Widow until you get turned and you become your sister 2.0 in a main Avenger team somewhere. But then this show throws a spanner in the works that, oh no, it was because Eleanor obviously saw that Hawkeye was getting too close because of his involvement with Kate, and calls up someone who calls up someone, or maybe she, in her dealings with Fisk, knows about Valentina, whatever the case. She made a call. Eventually, Valentina gets it, goes and gets Yelena, and that scene now, to me, takes place somewhere in the middle of Hawkeye, like potentially halfway through episode 3 or at the beginning of episode 4 or whatever it may be. That's where that is, and it's like that's. But
they've got to be somewhere where there's no snow. It's got to be some part of America where it doesn't.
Well, she did say something.
Well.
Where is she, in like the Midwest or something? Once at that scene in Black Widow, Valentina sneezes. That's how her entry into the scene, and she's like, "Oh, I hate the Midwest this time of year," or something like that. But you're right. That's where I get my little supercut of chronological scenes of this entire goddamn franchise. You best know that when I've had the Iron Man 2, Thor, and Incredible Hulk, 3 movies that all take place over the same week, I've looked up time zones and what it would be like. If it's like, oh, hang on, if that's nighttime at the university in Hulk, or when we cut back to Thor, who's in the other side of the country, well then would that nighttime? I've done the research, I've nerded out. So you're right, it would have to work like that.
If it was me, the way I would have done it is it would have just been the coincidence of all coincidences. It would have been Yelena just showed up because she's been tracking Clint, and he's finally in the same place for a few days. Like he's in New York.
Yeah. There's actually there's no bearing. The show doesn't change.
Yeah.
Really, I don't think if Eleanor doesn't hire Yelena, like she was already a bad person. She'd already committed murder at the start of this season that we don't know officially until this scene at the end of the episode. But it doesn't change what she's done. She's been a bad person for a long time.
What it should have been is Eleanor's phone call should have been to Fisk, and Fisk put Jack on it, and Jack was actually a plant this whole time. It would have made Kate right, which would have been a good thing for her. It wouldn't have made her look like a paranoid, annoying teenage kid.
Yeah,
hating the mum's boyfriend. It's like it would have made more sense and would have made us as an audience believe her skill and her intuition better, that she had a bad feeling about Jack and she was proved right. So Jack, as the plant, should have been the one to go and kill Eleanor, like in the car, and then that fight should have been Kate and Jack fighting each other. Kate defeats Jack, saving her mum, and she's like, oh my god, thank you so much, my daughter, blah, 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 blah. And then Kate still sent her to prison.
Yeah.
Because that part was fine. I was totally fine with Kate sending her mum to prison, but she should have saved her life first from Jack, and that would have made Jack's entire inclusion in this series mean something and be worthwhile. Because
he's just there as a caricature of what a bad guy is. Like, I still saw his poster that was released. The
LARPers had more of an arc in this 6 episodes than what Jack did.
And even that, like when Hawkeye had... Yeah, like I read one review of this where it said they've written... It's like they've written a Hawkeye movie and then tried to turn it into a TV show where there was just a lot... Like you said, it was peaks and valleys. There was just a lot of stuff that had to become filler or really stretched out because they wanted to hit that 6-episode mark or something or whatever. Like with that, even that LARPing
I
scene,
feel like that too.
If that's a movie, he just goes and takes that, right? He goes and takes it. He doesn't have to like, oh, okay, I'll have to sign up and then I'll have to... And I get, that's funny because Hawkeye's an Avenger, but he has to go and sign up to like a role-playing festival or whatever and then go and fight this guy and pretend to die and it's a big thing. And it's like, okay, well, that's one scene in one episode. Okay, it's done. But then for them to go back to him to get help and then they bring in all the LARPers to, oh, well, you can make our costumes. And I got so lost as to how did these guys get so involved and why does Clint care to involve them? So, like, it just... I don't know.
And I didn't even recognize them at the party. That was the weirdest part. I didn't realize that they were all posing as like wait staff. There was a potentially racist part of me that when I saw the black woman as the waitress, I'm like, is that a Dora Milaje? Like in secret? Because I didn't recognize her as the LARPer police officer.
Yeah.
Because they've been so minimal. I wasn't expecting them to be a part of the big...
Yeah.
Of the big
I don't think
battle.
they showed the main guy that they'd been dealing with. They didn't show him until like the 3rd or 4th LARPer, and I'm like,
and
that's all of them.
He's the one that actually had a name.
Yeah.
And then it was just weird for them to then be like, okay, well, while this whole thing is going down, we're going to take it must have taken them 10 or 15 minutes to go and change outfits into our LARPing gear. So people will notice us more for us to then do the exact same thing. I'm like, we didn't need any of this. I think these 6 episodes could have been trimmed down to 2.5 hours and been an actual fantastic movie. And given Jeremy Renner what he's due in terms of like the Black Widow film and this as a film should have come almost right after Avengers, almost in a lot of ways. Like this could have been done 10 years ago and would have been fantastic.
What I do appreciate that obviously it gives him a bit of turn to have his turn, and that in saying that it also is the epilogue of Natasha's story. Like almost every episode, there's something very serious about their relationship, and it's like, oh wow, okay, yeah, he's still a broken man. Like it's not just classic movie stuff. It's like, oh well, she died, we save the universe, next movie it's like, and back to ordinary life. Like he's still suffering with that. And he would obviously blame himself because he was there.
So, and that's Rogers the musical didn't live up to my expectations of what I hoped it would be from the trailers. I thought it was going to be... It's like that moment in probably episode 1 I think it was, where like he's almost having like a PTSD flash, seeing that woman playing Natasha on the stage was so heartbreaking, and for me relatable, because I mean, not to get personal, but the last couple of movies we've been to, I've kind of had a few moments when things have gotten a bit sad, so I totally related to that. And it's like, that's the kind of shit I love to watch, stuff that makes you feel something. Like it's great to see action and fun, but I want to feel something as well when I watch a good movie.
It is such a like, again, I like the joke of it, that they are, well, if this was a real world, well, then they probably would make a musical out of one of the Avengers. And which one? Well, of course, the American one, the big guy, the face of America, Captain America. But also, you think, timeline-wise, that musical is taking place 11 years after the attack on New York. There would be plenty of people, I assume, because they never said the death toll of that battle. Maybe they did an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which is not necessarily MCU canon, but it certainly worked off of what was MCU canon up until that point. So if they ever numbered it, I don't know. I would like to think at least a couple of people die, but surely thousands. There were buildings coming down.
Maybe even in Civil War, like when they were showing up those things. It might have even just been an on-screen graphic or something like that, but I'm pretty sure they did sort of reference the death toll from New York.
Yeah, and I say that because there would be surely a couple of people, more than a couple, that are sitting in that audience going, yeah, my dad died in that. And I'm
Yeah.
watching okay, I'm
me-
comparing it now to a real event, but to compare it to a real event where buildings came down and many people died in New York. Let's just for a second compare it to 9/11. You think in 2001 that happened. In 2012, they're going to have a Broadway show about 9/11 and the
Yeah.
heroes that then went to Afghanistan to be the first responders, essentially, that started off the war on terror? No, that's not happening, because why would people want to go and watch
There's only
that?
been a couple of films about it, and they've been very serious, like dramatic films. There haven't been any comedic films about it. And yes, certainly not a stage production. To me, the only way that buys it back is when it's called Rogers the Musical. It should be a posthumous honouring. We should have gotten confirmation on the status of Steve Rogers.
I wonder what they're holding out for.
We still haven't gotten confirmation. If he has passed away of old age, that musical suddenly makes a lot more sense.
Yes,
we
very
are
much.
honouring the guy that saved half the fucking planet, let alone half the fucking galaxy, universe. It makes sense. But as just hey, no, doesn't work.
Yeah.
I want confirmation. Like, as much as I don't want Chris Evans to be no longer part of the MCU, I want confirmation that Old Man Rogers is dead before I see a Rogers the Musical.
I enjoyed how short it was, I guess, and in episode 1, and it also worked with Hawkeye, who the type of guy that we know Hawkeye to be. Of course, he would look uncomfortable to be there and not want to be there, and then want to leave. But then,
and of course, his kids would want to see it because Dad's in it.
Yeah.
That's you, Dad. Yeah.
But then for it to, and it, again, they're not all going to be great. And after, even after Spider-Man No Way Home, mid-credits sort of stuff, we get excited about and we look forward to this sort of stuff. But even the stuff we have seen in the series, I want to say, has been a little bit more, for lack of a better word, exciting. But I'd heard that there was, and maybe it's just the terminology, I heard from someone or read on it, it's like there is a post-credits scene. Post-credits scene. Now, when we go and watch a Marvel movie, generally there's two. Everyone goes, there's a mid-credits scene and a post-credits scene. So we're sitting there
Very
at the
important
end
distinction.
Absolutely. We're sitting there at the other night, at the end of the screening, watching it. God damn it, we're not at a movie. And and we're like, oh, okay, that was definitely an episode of TV. And I'm like, all right, well, hang on, we got something good coming. Don't worry about it. And I hadn't opened up a message chain between yourself and Dane and me that you guys had already watched it and were commenting on post-credit. You had sent a GIF. Dane sent on the line, absolutely the best post-credit sequence in possibly any Marvel movie and certainly any Marvel TV series so far. And then you sent another GIF on, and I'm like, I'm not opening that. I'm pissed off that I read that, but I'm not opening up the pictures. And then the musical thing happens, which goes for like 4 or 5 minutes, it seemed.
Yeah.
And then
It's
sat
obviously
there and
them
waited.
going, well, we're going to show you the whole thing that we filmed.
Which is great, because Twitter has been asking for that for the last 5 weeks, going, if they don't give us a full sequence of something from the musical, we're rioting, right?
Yeah,
and then
that's a DVD special feature, not an end credit sequence.
A little Marvel YouTube release. And then we're just sitting there fast forwarding. The music dies down. The final, the American Animal Humane Society, and it's like, that's when you know you're at the end. And then all of a sudden, the music cuts, and it comes up with all foreign language and symbols about who started as what and did the voice work in different countries. And I'm like, oh god, that's it. And Lincoln goes, no, fast forward through this. I'm like, Link, no, this is post credits. It's part of the show, but it's because it's not on a DVD where it's that unskippable thing once you finish the credits. And so we fast forwarded through, and I'm like, holy shit, that was the post credits thing that people are talking about online. And then I open it up, our chat, and you're like,
it's on the drum set all over again.
Yeah, that's true. Well, you sent on and said RE the post-credit scene or mid-credit scene, and it was Captain America at the end of Homecoming going, well, sometimes you wait around and you're disappointed. And I kind of wish that I had looked ahead of time, because I almost put importance on that mid-credit scene as making me feel better about what had come in the show, because, it just seemed like you said, peaks and valleys. This episode was even though it was twice as long as most of the other episodes, it still felt rushed. And I was really looking forward to that entire hour. And then the next day, I kind of saw on Insta the preview, 30-second preview of that episode going, it's available for streaming now. And I'm like, oh my God, they really did fit a lot in that episode. But it still felt like it wasn't enough to justify something, to let something else breathe. And I don't know, like the Yelena Hawkeye stuff on the ice was great, but leading up to that, where she's running through a building fighting with Kate, and then Kate throws something at her mid-fight, and she's like, oh, that really hurts. Oh, I'm going to get sore from that. I'm like, oh my, really? You're breaking up?
I knew you'd hate that.
I did, and like I know she doesn't want to kill Kate, but really, Kate means nothing to her. Yeah. Kate doesn't want Yelena to kill Clint because Clint means something to her, and she kind of knows this guy, knows that Clint knows about this woman because of Black Widow and stuff. So she wants everyone to live. She wants good people to live, and she doesn't want bad things to happen. So I can understand Kate's motivation for pulling her punches, or at least not wanting to kill her in the fight, but I can't understand why Yelena wouldn't go, okay, right now, you are a roadblock to me. And it was similar to that little exchange and those moments, similar to when Kate was downstairs and she's fighting the tracksuit mafia and trying to protect people and get to where Clint was going to be, and then all of a sudden, she's taking them down, and then that one guy goes to punch her and she blocks it and holds his arm, and he's like, oh, whoa, before that, I wanted to thank you for the relationship advice that you gave me. She's like, oh my God, what happened? And, we went and saw Maroon 5 anyway, it wasn't a magic. She's like, oh my God, that's so great. He goes, I love Maroon 5, we both. She's like, that's so good. Why are you trying to punch me? He goes, well, I have to. And then she knocks him down, and I'm like, no, I get that this is not a dead serious show and we've got to have moments of levity, and that's part of the charm of what this show was, but tone for me is so important, and when there is such a mixed tone where we go from that into, I'm supposed to definitely believe that Yelena is emotionally invested in wanting to kill Clint because she does not believe, like, liar, just wailing on him. This is someone who could kill him from a distance, but wanted him to look at her and feel everything she was doing. And it just felt like such a mix in tones. And then, again, the Fisk thing should be completely irrelevant because we don't know, or it doesn't matter at this point whether he is the same one as Daredevil. But because I was looking at him going, he seems more involved than I'd like him to be, because this show, if I'm only watching this show, I don't know who this guy is. And then, getting hit by the car and sending him flying across that shop and through a window, a pretty strong glass, I'm going to say, only for him then to stand up. And I'm like, you're not injured. And then he gets electrocuted. Then he gets blown up. And then later on, he walks out completely fine to go see Maya and then seemingly gets shot. And I'm like, for a guy that I think should have ended his run in Hawkeye after that first 5 minutes because it was excellent, you have now kind of died 3 times in 15 minutes, and you'll be back again.
Before he gets thrown through that window, Kate shoots 2 arrows directly into his chest, and like that was when I was like, he's like just wearing his Kevlar suit. Yep. But he almost seemed to like pull them out. They should have hit and fallen. They stuck into him. They had to. They had to hit some flesh for those to stick straight out, and he just pulls them out. So not only is he's already got 2 arrow, like at least small arrow holes in his chest before he even gets like driven through that wall. Yeah. And by the way, that car was parked on the sidewalk. Yes. So while they're having that conversation, somehow Eleanor has gotten into the front seat of that car, done like a reverse parallel turn to then speed up and turn 90 degrees to then drive him straight through that wall that he was standing perpendicular to. Does not work.
No.
But
I mean, maybe it's an electric car. They're very quiet, Like, it's just, I know. When it hit, I'm like, oh, shit, who's shown up now? And it's like, it's her mum, and I'm like,
I thought that was going to be the Daredevil moment. I thought that was going to be Daredevil driving the car through. That's what I thought that was going to be.
Actually.
But yeah, with the Yelena and Kate fight, I knew you were going to hate that. Because to me, it was very reminiscent of the Civil War airport fight, which to me is one of the greatest things ever committed to film. It was just, it was amazing. But I know you've had issues with it because for you, there was no peril. Because, they weren't trying to kill each other. They were just trying to subdue everyone. So I know you had a little bit of a blockage with that. That's how I look at that fight. Is Yelena and Kate were... Like, Yelena has no problems with Kate. She doesn't want to kill her. But you're right. It probably went on a little bit too long where for Yelena to have that emotional moment with Clint later on, she needs to be like, no... Kate is slowing me down too much. I don't need to kill her. I just need to end this fight in 3 seconds, like any widow could do.
Absolutely could do, yeah.
Could have hit her with a stinger. Could have, even the kick to the... It could have stopped with a kick to the chest. Like, it could have stopped there. But going through, like, 4 office areas was probably... Could have stopped at 1. Like, it went on a little bit too far. The elevator scene was great. But yeah, after that, it kind of went. I think the kick to the chest should have been where it stopped. But it was cool to see Kate go up against Yelena, and I think it does in the same way people have criticized Rey in the Star Wars films of not showing her leveling up. It's just she just has all this amazing ability. We're seeing Kate level up.
Yeah.
You know, we're seeing the little her getting a little bit of training from Clint. We're seeing her going toe to toe with Yelena and holding her own in a believable way. So it's like when we next see Kate and she's going to be a full-fledged young Avenger or whatever she's going to be, she's going to be able to do these amazing things and we're going to buy it and go, this is like a 20-year-old who did a couple of gymnastics classes. Come on. Whereas, no, I believe it. Anything she can do now, I believe. I've seen a little bit of her training and I've seen her leveling up. I believe she can be an Avenger now. She can do, you know, she's going to be able to do some amazing shit. She's going to be able to do Clint Barton level shit. Yeah. I believe it.
And the Clint Barton level stuff, like, you know, the franchise itself has laughed at him on occasion. You know, he's in the middle of these superpowered beings and fighting robot armies and aliens and stuff, and he's just a trained archer, you know. And they've made plenty of fun with that, and people on the outside laugh at him, going, "What is that guy even doing there?" And there've been so many moments in this show where it shows, hey, you know what? In the middle of like a big movie and battle and stuff, you only need someone to have a hand-to-hand combat to feel real and to bring that brutality back and something tangible. And this has it too, where like they're having a car chase and it's like, how effective can a bow and arrow be in a car chase? It's like, it turns out very effective. And yeah, he's got some trick arrows and stuff, but that was a great sequence in episode 3. And other moments along the way where you're like, yeah, bow and arrow, like that skill is amazing. I would love to learn it, to know and do it as well as what he can do on that sort of with those threats. Amazing stuff. So like the building of the arrows, like I just did the link behind me. I'm like, oi, he's home alone. He's full Calvin McAllister right now, like, you know, drawing out a map almost of Operation Ho Ho Ho. And so that was all fun. And then even the sequence on the ice, it's like all of a sudden the Tracksuit Mafia went from being like maybe 15 people to, I don't know, 150. I don't know where they kept coming from, but they did, and then he got the chance to use a whole bunch of arrows and stuff, and you know, all that was cool, and I've got to go back and actually appreciate that sequence, and because, you know, we've seen...
I did like the callback, because I find trick arrows are fun, but what sells it for me is his instinct. He's got this highly trained instinct, so that it's from, I want to say Age of Ultron maybe, or maybe even the first Avengers, where he does the no-look. Like something's coming up behind him, and he does the no-look, boom. Yeah. And that was it. They brought it back in this one. And I really appreciated that, because it sells his instinct, his shield training, whatever it, you know, he knows what's going on. He's got the eyes in the back of his head. He just happens to prefer a bow and arrow. And, you know, and if it was a normal bow and arrow, we get boring, but the trick arrows then obviously like movie it up and make it, you know, make it fun.
And even hints at that sort of stuff. It didn't really go anywhere, but when they walk into the room and all dressed up, and my man Renner, goddamn, he can look good in a tux. Let me tell you that. And he says, "All right,
forget Bourne. He should have been Bond."
Yeah, exactly. What are our threats? What are our allies? And it's like, oh yeah, that's right. You are a spy. You know, you're not just this cool superpowered, or not superpowered, superhero type, you know, costume wearing guy that hangs out with superpowered people and aliens and stuff. You're a spy at the heart in the beginning of all this, where you walk into a room and you've got to know where your exits are, and you've got to identify that the bartender's looking a little shifty, and that the security guard over there has a bit of a weak limp on his left leg, so you know you can take him if you need to, or something like that. And I liked all of that stuff. It's just, you know, when the getting from A to B, and it's like, well, we need him on the ice. Well, he's upstairs, and we'll have him jump out the window and grab that rope that Widow had. Okay, cool. Is he going to slide down? No, we've already had Kate kind of slide down. Well, what are we going to do with him? Well, it's going to break. Isn't he going to then die? No, he's going to fall into that giant tree and then get stuck there for 6 minutes. And then he can't get down. So what Kate's going to do is destroy the tree at the Rockefeller Center. Why? Because it will look really cool. And it's like, and it just, I don't know, they're just like...
There was a weird moment there too, where it's like, she took out one of the lines with a normal arrow, then uses a trick acid arrow to bring the tree down. But then there's this weird moment later on where he takes a bunch of his trick arrows out of his quiver and puts it in her quiver. And she almost has this moment where she's like, oh my God, I can use trick arrows. This is the moment. This is the moment.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, this is the moment. And it's like, well, you already had your moment using a trick arrow earlier to get him out of the tree. So why is this a moment? That was a bit weird for me. I didn't quite get that as like a structure for the story. I was like, I don't get this moment, but okay.
Yeah. And otherwise, like, real up and down as far as, like, you got the real stuff. Like, really, it's about them, and obviously he's going to hand off to her at some point. Even at the end, she's like, oh, what about Lady Hawk? What about this? What about this? And he goes, I've got a name for you. I've got a great suggestion. Boom, Hawkeye comes up on screen. It's like, well, is that what it's going to... You know, that was a nice touch, and that was really obviously the emotional journey for this show was them two... Yeah. As a partnership in that moment, he says...
in the comics, Kate Bishop is just Hawkeye. She just takes over the moniker of Hawkeye, I'm fairly certain.
Yeah. So that was like a really good to have an introduction for that character rather than just shove her in a movie and in 20 minutes we've got to understand that, oh, she's a good archer too, by the way. There's heaps of them out there. And, well, she's the new Hawkeye. It's like, no, let's give them 6 hours to play with. And maybe she'll get another entirely new series before she gets to debut in a film or something. But I like that. I like, you know, the mixing of old school movie stars, new TV stars, and bringing those characters to life and all that sort of stuff, and that's the journey. And I liked watching them, how they got to, you know, in and out of knowing each other, and how much he didn't want to have to do with her, how much she stuck around and was trying to be persistent and, you know, trying to make him feel better about sticking around in New York away from his family and all that sort of shit. But then to turn and him say, hey, you're my partner, and her to be really emotionally touched by that was really cool. But then you get like, oh, well, this is only happening because it's in a comic book film moments for me, where there were 2 of them. And one I laughed at with Jack before is that, like, okay, what Hawkeye joked about. So he's on bail for potentially killing someone with a sword, so now he's walking around with a sword and trying to look innocent. But then when he's outside and Kate's in trouble, and he comes out like some pirate and just starts slicing up Tracksuit Mafia members, and is like, I've got you, ha-ha! And, like, you know, putting all these, like, French pirate moments and just kazam, and just slice them. We cut back 10 minutes later. He is still slicing people. And then we come back at the end of the fight. The police are finally there. Like, I don't know how a tree manages to come down, how a building gets evacuated. There are gunshots from one building to another. There is all this shit going down. And you're telling me the Rockefeller Center on Christmas Eve, not one police officer either in attendance or can't get there in a 15 to 20 minute period? My God, what a world this MCU is living in. That aside, they finally show up at the end. Jack is there, wiping blood off his sword after killing God knows how many people. If you're going to turn around and tell me, no, he only maimed them and you know, like, didn't kill them because it's a PG related, no, bullshit. He was killing people.
He's still a civilian slicing people up with a sword. Doesn't
freshly
matter,
out of jail from killing someone with a sword. That was the charge. And okay, we saw, like, him when it was happening and well after. You could tell me that a cop come up and question him about it. I feel like we need to see that, if that's the case, if it happened at all. So the idea that the cops just showed up and go, oh, so all these dead people are the bad guys and you're this good guy? Sick. Go on your way. Same as when the police show up. Now, unless it's got to do with that cop that called Kate in, like, episode 2 and said, I need you to come down to the station, I've got some questions for you. That cop showed up at the end of the Kate and Kingpin fight. Kate's talking to her mum, and from off screen, we hear that police officer say, Eleanor Bishop, you're under arrest for the murder of Arch, whatever the guy's name. Armand Duquesne. I'm like, yeah, how do you know that? Because we know that. How do you know that? Where did that come from? Where's your evidence? Because we've discovered that through, like, secrets and inner dealings with other bad people. How do the cops know this? Like, okay, cool, it works. But then also, Kate is sitting there, bloody, and carrying a bow and arrow in the middle of New York, and no one questions it. She's wearing a costume and a bow and arrow, and everyone's like, this is fine. Like, what? They don't know who she is. I just, like, that's shits me about these things, that we get this from an outside point. We know who Kingpin is, so that's why it's a big deal for the show. But the show itself almost didn't deserve to use him the way that they did, because they didn't build up to it in any way beyond, like, the last episode and a half, where he was kind of being discussed, if not on screen. So I don't know. It's just, again, did I enjoy watching the show? Yeah, I did. I quite enjoyed watching the show. Every week I looked forward to it, and I look forward to every Marvel TV show, but it was just, I don't know, a real mix of tones for me, and even those tones, watching one episode at a time, just up and down moments, filler moments, too many for my liking, and they were 35-minute episodes sometimes, and I've still felt like they were stretching out stuff to make it last longer, and anyway. Sounds like a bit harsh than maybe how I really feel.
I had zero investment in the Kazi Maya fight. And again, made no sense because we've set up Maya to be like impossibly good, just next like Avenger level fighter. Like no one can take her. Even Clint has trouble taking her. Yeah. And then suddenly Kazi's like, oh no, I'm going to fight you now. I'm not going to shoot you. I'm going to fight you in hand-to-hand combat. And even after him like taking swings and shooting at her or whatever, she's still like, no, we can run away together. We're in love. We can run away together and start a new life. And he's like, no, punch. And she's like, no, please, we can still. Like, come on, man. Come on. So yeah, there was no emotional investment in that whatsoever because I knew he was going to get his ass kicked. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
He's been an interpreter for 5 episodes. He's shown no physical prowess whatsoever. He's middle management. Like,
yeah. And that's also what I find weird that, like, Kingpin couldn't hire one other person to take out Eleanor Bishop. Like, I know Kazi was there at the start and said, what are we going to do? But it just seems like he would
should have had an offsider there.
Yeah.
Even for after the fight, the post-cleanup. The making sure that there's no DNA evidence that Wilson Fisk was ever at that fucking incident.
Yeah.
Like there would have been in Daredevil. There should have been that. There should have been that offsider. Being like, okay, we're going to make sure, that cufflink that, that Kate used, okay, we're going to make sure that's not there. There should be nothing there to trace back to him. That's the whole point of Kingpin.
Yeah. And he could be almost like a low-level Thanos type of the Marvel TV series in being someone that's always behind the scenes. Now, I want to see D'Onofrio all of the time. Bring more D'Onofrio as Kingpin to the screen. But... That's why I think he could have had, another sniper there. He could have had someone else do all the dirty work at the end of the series. And I get, okay, they got a personal connection, him and Eleanor. Like they've obviously been dealing with each other for 10 years. She's this high society type that he probably might be the one to want to go, all right, I'm gonna be the one to kill her. But I just still feel like, it would have been better served for him and the show if Kingpin's involvement ends when he says to Kazi at the start and almost the cold open, what are we going to do about her? And then everything that happens afterwards, it's his doing. He is the puppet master. And maybe then at the end you do get that Drax against Thanos moment where Kate's like, okay, I know my mum was bad and I know this happened, but this Kingpin guy is the one, and almost set up a future partnership again with Hawkeye to take him down. It's like, doesn't have to be now. Obviously we want to take down bad guys, but we've earned our break. We've stopped the immediate threat. We'll come back and lay low and blah, blah, blah. We'll come, and then he popped up in another show.
Set him up as the big bad for Young Avengers. Set him up for that. And
he's obviously going to pop up in Echo, the series, but that's also interesting. So what do they do with her? She was essentially a bad guy in this. Like she was a manipulated, misunderstood bad guy, but she was still a bad guy. And just because she tried to kill someone badder doesn't make her good. Like unless she's going to pop up in another series before her own. How do you go Echo, the bad guy, kind of from Hawkeye, presenting an 8-part Disney Plus Marvel series? I'm like, why am I watching that? If you like anti-heroes, cool. We've got plenty of those.
We've got to lean more into what has she done as part of the Tracksuit Mafia, because it's like everyone kind of forgave Clint for being Ronan. Like as an audience, like Ronan did some fucked up shit, including killing Maya's dad, even though he was probably not a great person. But it's like, okay, so she's almost like Ronan in that way. She's done some fucked up shit, but what's going to be her redemption arc? Like not killing Ronan isn't a redemption arc.
Yeah.
So yes, she's chosen to leave this life behind, but as Natasha said back in the day, I got a lot of red in my ledger. And she was always doing whatever she could to put more black in her ledger than red. So it'd be interesting to see what Echo tries to do in that regard. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I feel kind of bad. It's only you and I here talking, but I do feel kind of bad that I'm just absolutely shit canning this. It was just, it's like, hey, everything else I didn't talk about, let's just assume that I enjoyed it. But because there was a lot of fun to be had in this, there was a lot to like about it. It's just that it feels like we said that they had an idea that, could it have been a 2-hour movie? Yeah, but that's going to cost a lot more, and it's not going to get our subscribers. And I love the idea that they're going to give all their characters a TV series, because then you get these great they have tremendous actors coming along to play these characters. Look at Doctor Strange next year, and it's like Benedict Cumberbatch and Elizabeth Olsen, two great actors. But the worry with that film is like, well, it's kind of working off this multiverse stuff, and they're just going to sit there and have fun. And the reports the last couple of weeks that they were doing more reshoots just to add more cameos, because everyone has loved that in Spider-Man No Way Home. And it's like, cool. They do get a lot more chance to like have some character moments though, right? Because like Scarlet Witch was only served that, or Wanda rather, more than Scarlet Witch, was only served that in her own TV series. Up until that point, she hadn't really had that much to do. So, yeah, more TV series and more characters, and go deep diving on what makes them who they are. Great, but it just, I don't know.
Yeah.
It just
and then,
feels
I guess
a little
the other
thin.
thing too. What are we to end on is maybe like, what are they going to do with Linda Cardellini? What was that?
How do we not even mention that? Like, that again, after the Watch thing and Secret Identity and stuff, and everyone's like, oh, hang on, like, we joked when Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was on and we had Bobby there, and Adrian what's her name?
Yeah, Adrian Palicki.
Palicki. I would say Padalecki. I'm like, that's another guy.
Padalecki is the guy from
Supernatural. Yeah, Palicki. That she obviously in that was Bobby, and it was she's Mockingbird, which I don't know whether the word was ever used. Was it? Probably, but anyway, that she was Mockingbird. I don't think so.
She was always just Bobby Morse.
Right. So everyone just goes, well, Bobby Morse is Mockingbird, so that's that. And in the comics,
and she looked like Mockingbird. She used the screamer sticks like Nightwing does, which is what Mockingbird does. Yeah, she did all the things, but I don't know if they ever used that as her code name.
Yeah, and everyone goes, oh, well, they'll never do it in the movies, but we can just have a little bit of headcanon that her and Hawkeye once had a thing, and then all of a sudden we see Hawkeye's got a wife in Age of Ultron. It's like, oh, shit, so that's an old flame, obviously. And they never, again, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., its own thing, whereas in this they go, oh, yeah, his wife that's just always been at the farm, except for when she went to Tony's funeral. Yeah, well, she's a retired S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. She's Agent 19. She is Mockingbird. And it's like, cool. Are we ever going to get to see anything? Like, that'd be fun to see her maybe don a uniform again and let Linda Cardellini kick some ass with some sticks and stuff. Or is it just going to be like, well, that's some comics canon, but we're never going to do. This is us interpreting that and adapting that. It's just something you'll never see because it's already happened in this universe. So who knows? I'd love to see it. I really would, even just a flashback scene.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed to be a large plot point.
Which they almost
that watch back
didn't get back to. I think I was sitting there watching it in that scene at the end in his farmhouse, going, oh, "Hang on, what about the watch? Where did that come from?" He's like, "Oh, by the way, I got this for you." And I'm like, "Thank God you didn't forget about that," because it seemed like you were absolutely going to. So, yes. Well, that's.
I did see a like a fun fan theory where it was like, oh, maybe like, because she's Laura Barton in this show, so it's like maybe like her middle name is Barbara, and that's why she went by Bobby, like, or something like. Could be a little, or Laura is her middle name, or something like that.
Yeah, or Mockingbird is a moniker. It's a mantle. I've seen other people go, oh, maybe it's her little sister or something. Bobby's a little sister to her, and all different kinds of things.
Oh,
it's
that
like
could be fun, yeah.
It gets one of those examples. Maybe the simplest answer is most often the right one. Is that even the right way? Anyway, you know what I mean. It's like maybe there isn't. Yeah, it's not as complicated as all of that. It's just that no, she was, and she either never will be in the films, or they'll flashback to when she was, and give her a chance to go back to that past for 10 minutes or something in the modern day.
Which then will make all us sweaties go back and watch every scene from Age of Ultron where she was near Nick Fury, and just be like, they knew each other this whole time and no one told us.
My God, you have secrets within secrets. How do you do it? You're like a triple agent. We'll see.
Like,
I don't know.
That Nick Fury? Did that Nick Fury eat things with crusts on it? And oh no! But it's
Oh no! That was actually a scroll. That's why they didn't look like they knew each other. Yeah, I know. Goddamn tinfoil hat theories going on with these worlds. But I guess
absolutely,
it's why we love them. They make us think. They get us excited. Blah blah blah. So. Oh, all right. Well, who knows what the next one is? Miss Marvel or Moon Knight, I'm going to say. They look like they're going to be the most finished, so who knows what our next Marvel TV...
Yeah, well, Miss Marvel was supposed to be this year, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was supposed to be the final. Oh, no, was it supposed to be the final, or was it supposed to be before Hawkeye?
It was supposed to be before Hawkeye.
Yeah,
Hawkeye was always Christmas.
Yeah,
it was supposed to be before Hawkeye.
Okay, well, there you go. We'll see what...
Because the initial plan was there was going to be one piece of Marvel content every week this year between the movies and the TV shows, but they
which we almost got.
That way.
We almost got.
If Miss Marvel had been ready, we would have got it.
Yeah. Actually, one other thing I did want to add, and I don't know how much we can go, because I think even what I'm recording on is about to run out of battery, but the idea that people are, Spider-Man's going to show up in this. And then, like, some people online almost disappointed, and I'm like, why would you ruin the story arc of two Hawkeyes by bringing in Spider-Man and go, well, I'll save the day, guys, don't worry about it. It was the same with WandaVision. Everyone's like, Doctor Strange will show up at the end, and I'm like, oh, you're telling me in 2021 that you're going to tell me a troubled woman is only going to be saved by a smart, older white man, and he's the only one that can save her from this mess. You are... high. Maybe narratively it makes sense that Doctor Strange and her power set, he would come on board to help, and obviously she is going to be in his film, and there was even rumors they did actually shoot him rather than even just write scenes, but they never used anything. But I think we need to stop, and maybe it will happen eventually. I just don't think, especially in an origin story or an introductory series, are we going to have a big screen hero or an established Avenger show up in the final moments of a season finale to save the day, because that would just piss on everything that's come before it. I would have loved nothing more than to see Spider-Man show up in a TV show, because they can do that, and they can. Are Marvel going to waste their one more usage of Tom Holland in a Marvel property on a season finale of Hawkeye? Absolutely, they're not going to, but I would love to see it. But also, as a writing point of view, as a character development thing, that's not going to work. Doctor Strange showing up in WandaVision in the final moments to save her, not going to work. So we need to stop, as a fan base, hoping for this sort of shit, because it doesn't make sense to do it. Maybe in season 3 of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, you're going to have Rhodey pop up in the Iron Man armor and save the day. But until then, calm your farm, guys. Like, let's just enjoy what we have. Love it or hate it, accept what we've got in front of us as being the best thing for these characters, I guess. So, I don't know. Here I am sounding like I'm giving a TED Talk. This is not what I was here for to do. I'm not pretending I know everything. I know nothing, and that's why I'm going to get out of here right now. You can check out all of our old gear on our podcast channel. If you didn't listen to our No Way Home chats, we've got a non-spoiler. You don't need that anymore. A full spoilers review on the podcast. It might even be our most recent episode. You can go back and check that out. Matty and I dissected that in all spoiler glory. And then just for shits and giggles, go back and watch the movie all over again. In the meantime, follow us on the socials at GetIntoGeek. I am Mitch_Lewis on Twitter if you want to come and yell at me about my Hawkeye review. I'm sorry. Matty, where are you at, if you dare say so, after our review?
At High Pitch Matty.
Oh, there you go. You can come to both of us. Come to me first if you've got a tirade, and then go to Matty to say all the nice things. Otherwise, we'll be back some stage in the future very soon. Marvel TV, maybe not for a little while, because we don't know what's coming up next. And anyway, we'll get into Geek coming up soon, and we'll talk to you there, to Matty. Probably talk to you before then. Let's be honest. We text all the time.
Bye.
Get Into Geek.